welcome to the virtual edition of Film Independent Presents. My name's Jenn Wilson. I'm a senior programmer at Film Independent. I want to thank Film Independent's lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Also, thanks to our new official partner, Vision Media, who is our new virtual screening platform, making their platform available for us to do our screenings online now. I want to thank the generosity of a longtime supporter of our organization. Film Independent has, because of their generosity, been able to launch an emergency filmmaker support fund, which will provide grants to Film Independent fellows whose livelihoods have been disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Grants range from $500 to $5,000. To find out more information, you can go to filmindependent.org and look under Education and Resources, or you can email artistdevelopment@filmindependent.org. Just a note to anybody watching today, there is a question button at the bottom of the screen. If you'd like to submit a question, we will take some audience questions at the end of our Q&A. And now I'd like to welcome our special guest, actor and filmmaker Clark Duke, director of the new film Arkansas. Welcome, Clark. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. This is one I've been very excited about.
Clark, I've been doing some research on you.
Oh no.
And it's nothing bad. And you're a former child star, which I actually found that really fascinating. So you got your start on television when you were, what, about 5 years old?
Yeah, that's been the really funny thing about doing the press this week for the movie is basically until this week, nobody knew that I was a child actor. I had this weird sojourn into acting when I was a kid. My mom had a friend in LA that was working as an actress that we were visiting, and her manager saw me and was like, "Oh, we should send him on an audition. He's really like outgoing." And I booked this commercial and then did a bunch of commercials, and then CBS signed me to a talent holding deal when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And I ended up on this sitcom called Hearts of Fire with John Ritter, the late great John Ritter, and Billy Bob Thornton. And yeah, did that for 3 seasons. But then after that, me and the family just moved back to Arkansas. So I went to, all the way through high school, just back in Arkansas, and then moved back to LA to go to film school at Loyola Marymount.
So what was that a little bit of a culture shock? Working for a few years, in Hollywood on a pretty high profile show, and then having to go back to, was it a small town where you were from in Arkansas?
Very small. Yeah, I was born in Hot Springs, but grew up outside of it in this little town of like 2,000 people. As small as you can get. When you're like really young, I don't know if you realize it's a culture shock, but as I got a little older, and I would say when I was about 12, I got really into movies, like a lot of those like kind of mid-90s filmmakers, like I'm sure a lot of people my age are into, like Tarantino and Soderbergh and Kevin Smith and kind of the Miramax directors, Paul Thomas Anderson, the Coen brothers, Robert Rodriguez. And so basically when I was like 12, my mom told the guy at the video store, just like let him rent whatever he wants. So I just start, at like 12 years old, I'm watching Jackie Brown and Fargo and Boogie Nights. And but that's what made me want to be a film director. And I think it didn't seem impossible to me because I'd already been to LA and been an actor as a child. So like, it didn't seem like I was saying like, I'm going to go be an astronaut. So yeah, I felt a little out of place in rural Arkansas, to be honest, as like a bookish guy with glasses that was like, I was always small. I was like, 5 feet tall until my freshman year of college. And I was, like being a guy that was into like art films and comic books in rural Arkansas in the 90s was not super fun.
Did your family just miss Arkansas? Is that why you went back instead of staying and trying to pursue more work in Hollywood?
The whole family's there. Yeah. It's like, yeah, it was just, like I said, it was kind of this weird lark that I ended up out in LA doing it to begin with. And then, but also it was just that my mom was insistent that I have a normal childhood, and insisted I go to college, which I'm really glad of both things. 'Cause, it's like the bad cliche, but you see a lot of child actors kind of spin out and then get, arrested in drugs and all the other stuff. So I really feel like I got kind of the best of both worlds because, I was a child actor, but I certainly wasn't like Macaulay Culkin or anything. It's not like it really like, I didn't carry it around. You know what I mean? Like after it was over with, like it wasn't like, within a couple of years, it wasn't really like a thing, because you look so different as a child every year basically. So it worked out pretty well for me. But I'm also really glad that I did get the normal high school experience, and I'm really glad I went to college because I had a blast in film school. But I think college in general is just a good place to kind of figure yourself out a little bit. It's a good place to, like film school to me was just like, this is your last place you can fail and there's no repercussions. So I loved it.
Yeah, I grew up in a really small town too, and I had the same situation where it was the 80s and the advent of VHS, and neither my parents nor the owner of the VHS store knew what they had on their hands, so they would literally let us have anything.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of a paradise. And also I was in a situation where I got to go to Chicago and study acting for 2 summers. But after, when I was 16 and 17, but when I came back, to my town of 650 people from Chicago, I was so bitter.
Yeah.
And my family, and bored, and my family was like, "Oh, fine, we're not good enough for you anymore now that you've been to the big city." And I was like, "Yeah, basically, you're boring."
Mine wasn't so much that. It was more that just I very specifically knew what I wanted to do. Like, so many people go to college and they don't know what they want to do. They don't know what to major in. They're kind of trying to figure that out. But I mean, me, like I said, from the age of like 12 years old, I was like, I want to be a movie director. So I knew I wanted to go to film school, and I ended up graduating high school a year early. I took all my senior year classes at night my junior year because I was like, I'm ready to go.
So did you left Arkansas right after high school graduation and came back to LA then?
Yeah. But like I said, I had like just turned 17. I was because I skipped my senior year. So I was pretty young. Yeah.
And then, so you went to film school at Loyola Marymount?
Yes.
And so how long were you thinking about making this feature, Arkansas? Was it something that you had in your mind for a long time, that this is what you wanted to be your first feature?
Yeah, obviously being from Arkansas, and also my grandfather was this kind of tertiary Dixie Mafia character that I'd always wanted to write something about that world. And, even if it wasn't literally about him, just something, I knew there was something there, but I kind of didn't know what. So I read the book Arkansas, and I always wanted to be a director. I mean, my thesis film at Loyola was Clark and Michael, this web series of me and Michael Cera, and the pilot episode of that was my thesis film, and we ended up selling that and making that for CBS at the time. So I really kind of thought that was going to be my career trajectory as an adult, was as a writer director. But Clark and Michael kind of gave me an acting career instead. But I've always, I've always like been directing stuff, like making shorts. I've made a couple pilots, Funny or Die videos, basically a lot of stuff nobody's seen. But I read the book Arkansas. It was like 10 years ago when the book was published. Like I think it was like 2009. And as soon as I read it, and I just picked it up on a lark because I saw the title was Arkansas. I'm from Arkansas and I like crime fiction, and it was published by McSweeney's, who, generally are pretty high quality. And it just knocked me out because I was like, oh, this is exactly what I've been thinking and like percolating and trying to figure out how to do. And the dialogue was so good, and I liked the cool structure, and it kind of had the guy in the character of Frog that was sort of talking about what I wanted to address thematically with my grandfather, but then it also had these younger guys I related to, with the characters that Liam and myself play. So yeah, I've been trying in some form or fashion ever since then to get the thing made. And there'd be like, but I was also working as an actor the whole time, so there'd be I'd get a job and go do that and kind of put it on the shelf. And it was this long process.
So you said your grandfather's in the Dixie Mafia. What is the Dixie Mafia?
Uh, I mean, it's sort of, honestly, I don't even want to talk about that stuff too much, because I don't want to, I don't want to. The movie's certainly not like a biography of him by any means, and the movie's not like a history of or a survey of like crime in the South or anything like that. It's a character piece, but I just thought it was interesting. In Hot Springs, specifically Hot Springs, Arkansas, where I'm from and where a lot of the movie's set, Hot Springs has this really weird history with organized crime that a lot of people don't know about. But I mean, we have like a gangster museum downtown. It was basically like a resort town for like Kansas City, Chicago, St. Louis, all the like kind of organized crime families, because we had gambling. There were casinos in downtown Hot Springs up until the I think the 60s, like mid to late 60s. So I just, he was not like a major figure or character. He said the FBI's term was known associate.
A known associate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love stories like that because, when you watch something like Bonnie and Clyde or something that has real elements to it, there were a lot of small rural places, hideouts, etc., people that were kind of operating in secret, kind of a network. And I find that history really interesting too.
Yeah, me too.
Illinois has, of course, a lot of Capone history, but then like the whole Dillinger thing, and actually a lot of small town mob history too. So one of the things I really love about this is I love crime. I love crime stories, but I especially love a crime story that focuses on low-level criminals or criminals that aren't particularly good at what they do, or who have just sort of fallen into this life and they don't really know why. Was that something that also attracted you? Because almost every criminal in the film feels like an unlikely criminal in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I was always, I was trying to make friends of Eddie Coyle. I was not trying to make The Godfather. And I love those movies, like Robert Altman's Thieves Like Us was a big one in the back of my head. The Long Goodbye by Altman, another one I love. That's sort of, like you said, low level crooks. So I'm a big fan of that. The Coen Brothers, Blood Simple, Fargo. Like I'm a big fan of all that stuff in general too. But I mean, for me, it's funny because I thought I was making a Western. Like that's how, like our kind of true north for me and the cinematographer, and when I worked with the composer, was like Once Upon a Time in the West. Like that's when I read the book, I was like, oh, this is a Western. Like, especially like Kyle, like, not to like spoil the end of the movie, but like when he says goodbye to John and he's like, no, it's like, I can't stay. It's too dangerous for you. Like to me, that's a Western, that's Clint Eastwood coming in, killing the bandits, and like, I gotta be moving on. And the relationship between the two, my character, Liam's character, and Eden Brolin's character, Jonna, reminded me of Butch and Sundance, and it reminded me of specifically Once Upon a Time in the West, how at the end, you think that her and Harmonica are gonna get together, but then he just leaves, but that's very thematically a Western, and I love spaghetti Westerns. I love those movies. So yeah, it's funny because so many of the reviews and the interviews and stuff, everybody keeps making a lot of different like assumptions and references to what I was going for, and it's like barely anyone has mentioned Leone, but I mean, that's what I was trying to do with like shooting it. We shot it anamorphic and gave it this big score, and part of that was just because it is a very interior movie. It's the super character piece. It's like I said, it's not about the history of crime in the South. It's about these 4 or 5 people. So I wanted to give it a sense of scale, and I thought using the language of Westerns was a fun way to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting, like what people pick up on, because I haven't got to see it with an audience either. So I've got as much out of doing the press and the interviews, I think, as the people interviewing, just because it's fun for me to hear what people think of the movie. And
The dialogue in the movie is so interesting. I wrote a lot of it down because I just thought it it was so repeatable. Like John Malkovich's line, um, something about what kind of world is this? If a man like me can be disappointed or something.
When a man like me can be disgusted, yeah.
Disgusted. So is that the way that they talk in the book, or was that sort of something that you added?
I kept the dialogue was the thing that really grabbed me from the book. Like I kept as much of the dialogue as I possibly could because that was what made me think it was a movie when I read it. I was like, oh, actors, people would love to say this stuff out loud, you know? Because as an actor, you get, or my experience anyways, you get sent a lot of really terrible stuff all the time. So I just had a feeling actors would respond to it. And the dialogue is what I love. I mean, you know, like I said so much, I love Elmore Leonard. I love crime fiction like that in general. Like it's Friends of Eddie Coyle, you know, like I said, there's something about that kind of rhythm, and the author of the book, John Brandon, is Southern too. So I also felt like there was kind of a real tone that was pretty specific to, like there's a dryness in the South, and like people are really funny without meaning to be a lot. It's almost kind of reminds me of like the British vibe almost. And you don't see that a lot, you know, a lot of portrayals of the South, and especially of Arkansas, is it's always like a guy in overalls with no teeth type of thing. So I wanted to make something that didn't feel like that didn't have a bunch of like banjos and country music, you know, like weird, just like I wanted to avoid as much of the cliche stuff as I could, because that really wasn't my experience growing up there and the people I knew.
Yeah. So let's talk about your casting of your actors. Were you, when you were writing, did you have certain people in mind already? And if you did you get any of those people that you thought of first?
Yeah, I mean, well, I wrote Swim for myself, just because, you know, basically nobody else was going to write me a part this good. I really just kind of hit a wall and a ceiling acting wise. Just it's rough, and this happens to everybody, not just me. If you do one thing, you just kind of get called back in to do that thing again. And you know, I didn't just set out to do like R-rated comedies my whole life. Like that those aren't really I like those movies, but that's not all I watch, and that's certainly not what I like grew up wanting to like dreaming of doing to my whole life. Liam, I mean, as far as the casting goes, it all started with Liam, and Liam was the first person that I went out to and made the offer to, and frankly, I didn't think in a million years he would do it. Like I keep telling this story this week, and Liam's told it too. Of I just kind of thought the meeting was probably a waste of time, because I was like, there's no way like Liam Hemsworth, because I didn't know him at all. We didn't know each other, but they were like, he read it, he wants to meet and talk to you. And there's a tendency to get like, you just get so beaten down by this months and years long process of trying to raise money for this thing that it's easy to get a little like nihilistic at a certain point, you know?
Right.
So like I had this meeting with him, and he's like, this is Liam telling me this, like while we were on set, he told me this later. He goes, you showed up hungover, and he goes, when I told you I wanted to do the movie, you looked so surprised that I was immediately like scared I'd made a huge mistake. But I was shocked. I'm still shocked. But everything started with Liam. Like once we had Liam, we had financing, and then once we had Liam, we could get other actors, and people wanted to be in the movie. Because I mean, the trick was just, you know, whenever people would read the script, they generally responded well to it.
Yeah.
I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I think the cast of my first movie would be like this, though. If I'm to be honest, now it's still shocking.
Yeah, I love the performances in it, and I have to say, I mean, I think it was really smart for Liam to take the movie, because he has the chance to shine in it in a way that he hasn't before, and to show that he actually is a lead.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Yeah, that's one of my, you know, because I think it's the most fun Vince has been in a really long time. Like, you can tell he's having fun with it. I mean, Malkovich is always just like a home run and everything, but I think, like, you know, and again, like Vivica Fox and Michael Kenneth Williams, like, they're all always just so good at the gate. But specifically for Vince and Liam, one of my biggest hope is that you know, people see how good Liam is, because I mean, I think people know he's good, but he's, you know, he's so famous that it's almost like I think Liam should be in conversation for the parts that, like, Ryan Gosling and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Shia LaBeouf, like, I think he should be in, you know, in that space, because I think he's really, really good. And I mean, to me, he carries so much of the movie just with his eyes and with his stillness and his looks. And I mean, that's something you can't teach. You know, that's movie star. That's like Paul Newman, Clint Eastwood. Like, you can't teach.
I mean, to be fair, I think it's a combination of, it's a great script, he's a good actor, and also you're a good director. I think you have to have those three things working in combination, you know, because we've certainly seen material that should have been good, but what didn't quite make it because it wasn't quite directed in the right way.
I've been in a lot of those movies, yeah. Yeah.
But Vince Vaughn blew me away in this, and I was just like, I'm so glad to see him again, you know, because you know he's got the chops. He just doesn't get a part like this very often, and every scene is just the choices that he makes. You know that line, you know, like where they say, like, what line of work are you in? And he said something about, well, I guess we're all park rangers out here.
Park rangers too. That's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. I remember just watching the dailies of that and being like, oh yeah, we got a movie. Okay. Like, I was like, you know, what's the old Billy Wilder saying? Like, if you got 2 great scenes and no bad scenes, I was like, I saw that and a couple others, like, okay, we got a movie. At the bare minimum, like, I knew we were going to be okay when I saw those dailies. Yeah, I'm really proud of the performances across the board, and I think probably what I brought to it as a director is, you know, I have been an actor for so long, and, you know, like, I've heard, like, Peter Bogdanovich say this, like, you just have such a leg up directing actors if you're an actor, because you know, so much of it for me was just allowing everybody to have fun and try stuff. And if they had something they felt strongly about, it's like, yeah, go for it. Like, go for it. I mean, there's nothing, because I've just personally been so mad on so many sets that, like, someone forced me to wear, like, a pair of shoes I thought was stupid. And I'm like, you know, I'm like, as the actor, you're the one having to, like, be there,
right, and
be, like, present and, like, you know, put the show on. And, like, there's nothing more distracting than when you're uncomfortable with something. So, I mean, for me, part of what I try to do is just, if somebody felt strongly about something, I'm very much of the opinion of, like, I mean, unless it was something just like bananas that, like, you know, ruined the plot of the movie or something, but character-wise, I'm like, yeah, let's try it, because you're almost only going to get better stuff out of that. And I think that's what's coming across is, you can tell everybody acting in the movie is having a good time. Like if you get the sense that the actors are, like, everybody's enjoying it.
Yeah, I felt that. I talk about working with John Malkovich, who's one of my favorite actors of all time. He actually went to the acting school that I went to, Illinois State University.
He is the absolute greatest. He's one of my favorite people I've ever got to be around. The most professional actor I've ever been around, the most prepared, the most patient, kind, thoughtful. Like, I really can't speak highly enough about John Malkovich. I mean, I learned so much. Just, I would catch myself in scenes with him. I would forget to act because I'd realize I was just standing there watching him. I mean, that's not even a joke. Like, that happened a couple times where I would just realize, oh, I'm supposed to be talking. He just does stuff like, just like, I mean, he knew more about fight choreography than a lot of the stunt guys did. I would look over and he'd be placing rubber mats over cables on the ground, and he's not complaining or asking anyone to do it. He's just doing stuff. And, like, you know, for a guy of his stature to be as like lovely and patient as he was with a first time director. And yeah, I was, and also the other funny thing is, you know, I've done movies with a lot of huge, like I've done movies with Eddie Murphy, Robin Williams, Burt Reynolds, a lot of these like childhood heroes of mine, Jim Carrey, Chevy Chase. But I was a little starstruck by Malkovich. Like it's one of the first times I've been like kind of nervous around an actor.
Yeah.
And it's just sheerly out of like respect, it's, but then once I got to know him, like the kind of reveal is he's secretly very funny, and extremely kind. But he just has such a gravity. But yeah, you wish you had like five or 10 Malkoviches on set. I mean, he's just the best.
He feels like the kind of person that if you saw them, you would bow to them first. Just be
a little
like,
bit, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, just for example, I didn't know, he and I had a couple phone conversations before he showed up on set. So, I mean, he showed up with that character fully formed, like based on these like kind of broad notes I gave him of like what I thought the guy's backstory might be, and what was in the book. But I mean, I just remember him the first time I opened my hotel room door and there's John Malkovich, and that's like wild enough. And then he's like, okay, let's just read it. And his face goes from totally blank, and he goes, and he does that thing with his teeth and just like a little bit of a head tilt. And then I heard the voice he's doing, and I just was like, oh my God, yes, like shoot it in my veins. Like,
yeah.
But okay, like one of my favorite moments in the movie is where he answers the phone with his feet.
Oh, right.
That's not in the script. Like that's
I was wondering if he ad-libbed some of his performance.
Not so much the dialogue. There's almost no. I think there's like one line of ad-lib dialogue in the film. But no, that was all him. I mean, that's just an example of like, he's so good that he makes the act of answering a telephone in a scene interesting and in a way you haven't seen it before. And that's pretty amazing.
So the movie's fairly long. Was it hard to, like, when you were looking to make it and get financing, did you have to fight for that length where people are like, well, we give you some money, but you got to chop an hour off or 45 minutes or...
It was mostly that came up more in the editing. I mean, I'm sure if you watch the credits, you notice we've got like 48 executive producers. And some of those people thought we were making like a Steven Seagal, like straight to video action movie. They're like when they saw the movie, they're like mad. I think there were some of the EPs and the financiers that thought the movie was going to be like Liam and Vince in a gunfight, basically. And I was like, no, that was never the movie we were making. Like, I don't know how you guys read the script and got to that. Yeah, it was. I mean, so much of this thing was a fight. Like, and like I said, especially editing, just because there's so much pressure. Like, I mean, I had to fight to keep the whole relationship with my character and Jonna, Eden Brolin's character in the film. And I'm like, that's the heart of the movie. Like, you don't have a movie without that. And I'm like, I'm not saying that because I'm playing the guy. Like, I just believe that. Like Eden is one of the best parts of the movie and like grounds the movie and is such a like good audience POV character. And I'm like, you don't have a movie without her. Like, and I'm just like, it's so short-sighted and dumb. But that's making indie film. You could.
Yeah.
I'll be more careful next time.
Also, all of that sort of informs who Liam Hemsworth becomes as a character in the end too, because he loves you and Jonna so much.
Right, and I mean, to me, that's the mood. Like, I was always like, and it's been really gratifying in kind of doing the interviews and the press rounds and stuff, and hearing people's reaction to it, because so much of the stuff that people really loved and responded to was the stuff that I fought so hard to keep in, and did keep in, like, because I just was like, you'll have to fucking fist fight me, or like to get me to like take this stuff out of the movie.
That final scene with with Liam Hemsworth and Vince Vaughn. I guess it's not the final, but it's the last that those two have together. I just didn't want it to happen, and I'm just like, it's a testament to how much I loved both of these characters, because I felt like they're the younger and older versions of each other.
Exactly.
They should be on the same side.
Yeah.
But because of the nature of this business, they can't be. And
yeah, that's exactly what I was going for.
It just it so much feels like it's good people forced into really bad situations, but they're stuck with it. You know what I mean? They're stuck with this limited choices.
Well, and that goes back to, so much of acting being casting, because if it wasn't someone as charismatic and likable as Vince playing that part, I'm not sure you'd feel that way. If it was somebody that was just kind of a more down the middle, like antagonistic, you know what I mean? Like if somebody would have played it, if you didn't have somebody that was just as naturally likable and fun as Vince, I'm not sure the movie works in that way. So that's one reason that I love his performance. And one of the only notes I ever gave him was like, don't be afraid to be likable. Don't be afraid to be funny. Don't steer away from that. I think it's great. Like I want the audience to like Frog and feel conflicted, because I think that sets up the stakes at the end. Like you said, like that was my hope.
So my last question for you is about the music. Which reminded me very much of my 1980s country music childhood.
Yep.
Gatlin Brothers. Was that all your choice, or did you have a music supervisor who picked the songs for you?
Those are all mine. Yeah, those the Flaming Lips cover all the songs, which another like never in my wildest dreams I think would happen thing. And also that's because of Liam. Liam was friends with Wayne Coyne. But the Lips have been one of my favorite bands in the world since high school. I actually shot it when I was in college. I shot Super 8 for one of their concerts at the Hollywood Bowl when I was like 19 years old. So that was another like just blew my mind thing I couldn't believe, to be the very last day of production in my hometown of Hot Springs to show up and the Flaming Lips are there at 10 in the morning. I still can't believe that. And then, but yeah, the music was incredibly important to me, and one of the things I fought for from the get-go, and I demanded of, this is one of the first things I told Patrick Hibler, the other producer on the film, I can't make the movie if there's no music budget. Like we gotta have, I don't want to, I'm like, we cannot get an editing and you be like, there's 10 grand left for music. Because you see that on so many indies, because I'm like, that's the difference in, I don't know, and it's a weird lesson that like nobody on the finance side learns that much, because it's like, so many of the movies you love and that are iconic, like, half of movies is audio. It's picture and sound.
Yeah.
And for some reason, nobody ever wants to spend any money on that. And it drives me insane. But yeah, the songs were so important to me. And I love the tone that the Lips covering them gave the movie. And that was something. So initially the Flaming Lips are just doing the one song where they play themselves in the bar. And then when I got in editing and I was using all these kind of like urban cowboy era, like you said, like 80s country hits, I just, I asked the Lips, I was like, you want to cover, like Country Boy Can't Survive too? And then after that, I was like, do you guys just want to do, and then it was so awesome. I was like, do you guys just want to do all the songs? And they did. And the other, the score, not the pop songs, the needle drops, but the score was by Devendra Banhart and Noah Georgeson. And Devendra is amazing too, and has been a friend of mine for years. Did
you guys release a soundtrack for this too?
We're working on it right now. I'm literally like talking to the labels and the music supervisor every day trying to figure this out, because everyone keeps asking where can I get the music.
It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, that's a whole other like tricky can of worms when you're dealing with like multiple record labels, and they've all and like Lips and Devendra both have albums coming out, and it's like that's a whole other thing. But I'm trying. At some point, yes. And hopefully sooner than later.
All right, let's see what kind of questions we got here. The first one says, what's one piece of advice you wish you received when you started out? I'm assuming he means when you started out I don't know if he means starting out as an actor or starting out as a director. Probably as a director.
Um, for me, like as it relates to this project, because this is my first feature, there were so many people along the way that just tried to tell me not to do it, like not to direct it. Like, well, you're just, basically like, oh, you're just an actor. Like, we'll get a real director. And then even when we were raising money to make the movie, like the producers and financiers didn't really want me to be in the movie, because everybody was like, well, you can't, they probably just want a bigger name too, but they were like, you can't direct and act at the same time. So my advice, don't let people tell you can't do stuff. Like if you really believe it, nobody wants to ever take a chance or take a risk, like in this business. Like nobody wants to build the career. They just want it to, like, nobody wants to sign you until you've acted and stuff. Like it's this bizarre chicken and egg scenario that everybody's caught in. So yeah, my only advice is just do it. Like I've told this over and over, but a big impetus to me finally, like, was just where I'm just like, I'm gonna make this movie or bust, even if I have to finance it myself, was Mark Duplass's South by Southwest keynote speech in 2015, which I encourage everybody to go watch, and I point people towards all the time because of the effect it had on me. But his thesis was the cavalry isn't coming, and he's right. Like, they're not. Like, the agents, nobody's going to help you very much at the end of the day, sadly. And I kind of had a similar, like, as soon as I took that mindset, because that was the mindset I had on Clark and Michael that got me started my career again as an adult. And as soon as I took that mindset with this movie, the ball started rolling. So that would be my advice. Like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and don't wait on anybody else to do it.
Okay, next one. I love the film. It reminded me of the work of Jeremy Saulnier, particularly Blue Ruin. Was Blue Ruin a reference point for you in any way?
No, I haven't seen Blue Ruin, to be honest. I want to check it out now, though. That sounds cool.
Okay.
Please excuse my enormous bottle of water.
Please keep hydrated.
Yeah, I'm starting to lose my voice. It's the end of the week here.
Somebody says, I see a long list of producers. Can you explain the pros and cons of having that many producers?
There's no pros, it's all cons.
Okay.
So that's a short answer for pros. There are none. It was just we got backed into a corner of, we had this window where we had these actors, and it's like, we have to shoot in this window or there's no movie. And there's so many movies that make it to like the 5-yard line, the 1-yard line, and then fall apart. Like, you hear these horror stories all the time. So yeah, me and Patrick Hibler, the other producer on the film, basically the movie kept getting more and more expensive, especially as we kept adding more and more like huge cast members to it. And we just got backed into a corner where we had to take these people on to get the money. And they really had us over a barrel, and they knew it because they knew we had this window we had to hit. Cause it's like, you've got John Malkovich for 1 week, you've got Vincent Liam for this month, and that's it, or there's no movie. So we were just like, we did anything and everything to get the movie made. And that's how you end up with, 18 executive producers or whatever. I never even met most of the people, to be honest. And the ones I did meet, I guess there are a few I could have done without. So yeah, it's just a reality of making an indie film, It just is what it is. But the fewer cooks and voices in a room is always better.
A couple of people have asked about your process for adapting a book into a screenplay.
Well, this was the first time I've done it. I've done it once since then with another script me and my friend Andrew that I wrote this movie Arkansas with have adapted to, and they were both very different. They were totally different genres. I guess the commonality was, I love the dialogue, but the trick for Arkansas, there were a few. I don't know, it's a weird process because you have to be so economical with a screenplay. But part of what I loved about the book was the kind of, frankly, like, slow pace of the thing and like the slow burn of it. And that's what I love about the films of Robert Altman, also. But it's a weird thing to make like make a movie in 2020, like to tell people, and one of the chapter cards is boredom is beautiful. And like, for me, one of the things I really wanted to play with was like, and that's a thing that reminds me of the South a lot too, is the slower kind of pace of everything. Like, nobody's in a hurry. And that was important to me to do, but you can't really tell people like boredom's a theme I want to explore, because that like immediately scares everyone to death. Yeah. Like mentioning the word boredom in relation to a movie. So, you use like laconic or something. As far as the question of the process of adapting it, it was a process. I mean, the first kind of crack at it was us kind of just transcribing the book, just transcribing everything in the book, and then you've got like a 200-page script. So then you're like, okay, well, shit, this is crazy. We can't, you can't make a 200-page movie. I mean, if you did that now, it might be like, oh, we've got a mini series for HBO or whatever. But I always wanted it to be a film. And the interesting part of it was, there was a version of the movie that was like probably about 130 pages long that no one especially responded to. I'm just talking about like my agent manager that read it, basically. And the second that I cut it down to like 110, whatever it is now, which is still on the longer side, everybody loved it. So I mean, that was a lesson to me that I've carried with me since then, because everybody had all these notes. Like on the 130-page version, everybody always has notes. Most of the time, the real note is it's too long, but nobody knows how to articulate that. And they don't even know that that's what the problem is. So they'll tell you, oh, it's this character, it's this part. It's like, you got to get rid of, you got to change this. But the reality is, it's just too long. And that was the process of just like whittling it down.
Okay. I love that answer about boredom, though, because I completely agree.
Thank you.
I
mean, like Richard Linklater's movies, a lot of people don't, can't handle because you're just like hanging out. But I mean, I love that, and I love Nashville. I love MASH. I love all of Altman's films, because you're just shortcuts. Like, you're hanging out with these people for a while, and that's what I'm drawn to. But I think that's why I think the reaction to this has been a little polarizing, because there are a lot of people that are not going to like that.
I think the space of boredom is a lot of where the most interesting things happen, and that's the basis for slow cinema. Is giving the space for some miracles to happen. But it is also hard to describe to people that that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I saw one review that said I made a mumblecore noir film or a mumblecore western, and I was like, that's pretty awesome. That's
yeah. Okay. Can you discuss working with Vivica Fox and her involvement in the film?
I love working with Vivica. She is awesome. Vivica showed up so prepared and so fully formed with a character in mind that I think she brought most of her wardrobe, these wild outfits, and like so much stuff, like the curlers and the hair, and she was just so game and so fun. And I didn't meet her until she got to set. She was just somebody I made the offer to, because I knew she could do it, because she can do anything. But my scenes with her, the scenes with me and Liam and her, are maybe my favorite in the whole movie. Like, I think they almost capture the tone of the book closer than any other scenes, because there's an element of imminent. They're scary for some reason. The scenes with her are funny. They're the funniest scenes and the scariest scenes, and that just, I guess, comes down to her presence, and like, she just has such a great like gravity on screen, and is super nice in real life. I'm actually about to go right after this. We're getting on Instagram Live to answer questions together. So, love working with Vivica. I would love to work with Vivica again. She's been a pleasure.
Her performance was amazing. Thank you so much for casting her. I feel like I don't get to see her enough in things, and
Yeah, she's awesome. I mean,
great.
I just was like, you wanted somebody, like I said, that had that sense of danger, and you knew she could. I mean, just think of like Kill Bill. Like she could.
Yes,
You buy her hanging out with these rough characters.
it's true. She has a great sense of like tension, comedy, and menace all
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Like when she tells my character to shut the fuck up, like I'm like, that's great, because like if anything, she's gonna kick my ass.
Right.
Same.
Or when Liam talks over her and she's like, excuse me, and you're like, dude, you don't talk over a lady.
Yeah.
Like, that's right. So we're out of time, but
Oh wow.
I wanted to just say real quick, I love the film. It's available online on all the platforms now for rent, right?
Yeah, rent or purchase, Apple, Amazon, VOD on demand on your cable and satellite. It's on DVD and Blu-ray. Yeah, it's basically everywhere except theaters. It's available, and it seems like it's doing well. I think as of last night on Apple, we were like the number 3 movie, just behind like Ford and Ferrari and Vin Diesel's movie. So I think
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited that people seem to be discovering it.
Are you working on anything directing projects wise after this, or?
That's what I want to do. I mean, I've got 3 feature scripts and 2 pilots ready. I don't know when anybody's gonna be able to shoot anything again, but that's my goal, and that's why I really hope this is successful, because I don't want the next one to take 5 or 10 years to make. I'd like to go right away, because that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do from going forward.
Well, I wish you good luck with that. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. This was a pleasure. This was one of the ones I've been most looking forward to.
So I hope you get to make another film, and then you'll come back and talk to us again.
I will, and hopefully in person.
And maybe it'll be in the theaters.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Take care. Thanks, Clark.
Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for watching.